Hey, welcome to Jesus, Mary and Joseph. All
It's
right,
been
let's
a
try that
day.
again. Hey, it has been a day. Welcome to Midwest Prayer Talk Radio. I'm the G Man. That is Deb, and we have a guest with us tonight, Dan Harary. Huh? Got it right?
That's right. Very good.
Yay!
See, see, I'm terrible with names. I could see your face and know you for the rest of my life and never know a name.
Well, listen. When I met Meryl Streep, I shook her hand and I called her Carla. I was so nervous. So you're in good company. That's a true story. Hello, Carla. Nice to meet you, Carla. Meryl
Carla.
Streep. Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep.
Did she look at you and go, "Who the hell is Carla?"
She looked at me. Well, there's a woman standing next to me named Carla, and I have a touch of dyslexia, which I actually do. So when I called, I said, "Carla, nice to meet you," shaking Meryl Streep's hand, and the woman Carla next to me went like this, and Meryl Streep looked at me like the RCA Victor dog, like, "What did you just say?" And then she turned and left, and the rest of the day she refused to talk to me.
Oh,
Oh,
you'd have been my
wow.
best friend from that point on because I'd have been laughing at you every time I saw you.
It's one of my all-time greats. I've been a Hollywood publicist 40 years. I've met hundreds of famous people. That was the biggest screw up I ever had with a celebrity. Let me tell you that.
Oh well,
Wow.
that's.
Well, you know,
I'm so happy you're here. I'm so glad to see
Very
you
sweet.
again.
Very
We
sweet.
have
Yeah.
we have. I met Dan in March of 2023 in San Francisco at a conference, and he's a just. He's just a wonderful person.
You should be my publicist, Deb.
right. So, I guess where we're going to jump in first, Dan, why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do for our listeners, and kind of give them a background there, and then we'll dig into some serious questions.
Sure. It'd be my pleasure. Thanks, you guys, for having me. It's very sweet. Deb, I think you and I became friends the moment we shook hands. We exchanged books.
Yes, we
I
did.
got your book. You got my book. It was in March last year at UFO Con, Lorian Fenton's event, UFO Con.
Mhm.
Anyway, we'll start at the beginning. I'll do this quickly. My name is Dan Harary. I was born and raised right near Asbury Park, New Jersey. My parents were from Brooklyn. They got married. They moved to Asbury Park. I grew up in the 50s, early 60s in Asbury Park, and that's when it was really quite a beautiful, wonderful place before the riots in the late 60s burned it down to hell. And it was bad for decades until a few years ago. Um, when I was in high school, I had very long hair. I played the drums. You'll see my electronic drums behind me.
Yeah, I see those.
I was in rock bands. I had light shows, and one of my bigger stories from that era is I was the stage manager and the lighting director for a concert hall in Asbury Park called the Sunshine Inn. I was only there for a few years. And guess who was the house band at that time? Bruce Springsteen. So Bruce and I worked with Bruce Springsteen in 1973 at a few of his concerts. My best friend and I, we did his lights and his stage crew. He asked my friend and I to go on the road with them. Actually, it was Clarence Clemens who asked for me and my friend to go on the roadies, 1973. And I said, Clarence, we're only 16, we don't drive, and our fathers want us to go to college. So we turned down being Bruce Springsteen's road crew, and that's a true story. I also worked with Kiss before they were famous. I worked with Fleetwood Mac before they were famous. So that was my high school years, was rock and roll.
Nice.
After high school, I went to Boston University. When I was there in the communications school, when I was there, Howard Stern was there 2 years ahead of me. I didn't meet him then. I met him 20 years later. But he was in the same school as me at the same time, which was kind of interesting. My friends used to talk about this crazy guy who was on the radio early in the mornings, like 5 or 6 a.m. on the BU radio station. And I said, I'm not waking up that early to listen to some lunatic. So I never heard him on the radio live at BU. But he was a star even then in the 70s.
Wow.
After college, I worked briefly in New York City at Columbia Pictures. A friend of mine from college got me a job at Columbia Pictures. I was in the PR department. And I got to know Brooke Shields and her mother. Brooke was 15 at the time. This is 1980. And I was in the PR department, and we worked on her film called The Blue Lagoon, which
I remember that.
made Brooke pretty famous. There had some sex scenes in there with her and a guy named Christopher Adkin. So the first time Brooke Shields and her mother, terrible Terry Shields, ever saw The Blue Lagoon was with me in a private screening room at Columbia Pictures on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. The three of us watched The Blue Lagoon together. And at the end, Brooke Shields looked at me like this. I said, "Brooke, what's wrong?" She goes, "Oh, I'm such a terrible actress." And I said, No, I thought you were wonderful. You're going to be a big star. I said, "Cheer up. You did a great job. You're going to be a big star, Brooke." I said, that's right to her face. And her mother, who everyone else called terrible Terry Shields, looked at me and said, "Dan, that's really nice of you, man. You're a really nice guy." And for the rest of the time I worked at Columbia, she was nice to me. She hated everyone else, but she was terrible Terry was always very nice to me. I was commuting from Jersey to Manhattan for that job, 4 hours a day on the bus. And after 4 months, I just couldn't do it. It was too hard. I didn't want to live on a bus. I didn't have the money to live in Manhattan. So after 4 months, I said to my boss, I said, "Look, I can't do this. I can't commute. It's too hard." They laid me off. I got some unemployment money. I spent that summer of 1980 writing this really, really bad screenplay on my mother's kitchen table. And then that fall, and this is really from the universe or karma or whatever, that fall, two different friends of mine who had just moved from New Jersey to Los Angeles called me the same week. Two separate friends who didn't even know each other called me the same week and said, "Would you like to come visit here in LA?" So I went to my father. I said, "Dad, should I go visit my friends? And they just moved to LA." He goes, "Schmuck, move to LA. That's where the entertainment business is." He goes, what are you doing here in New Jersey?" He goes, he said, "Schmuck, move to LA." That's my father said. May he rest in peace. So I looked at my father for 5 seconds. I said, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." And that changed the entire course of my life. And that's a true story. 5 seconds changed the course of my life.
Yep.
Fall of 1980, my two different friends, I came out to visit them. I stayed on their couches. One, I stayed on his couch for a month. The other one was a woman and her boyfriend. I stayed on their couch for a year. I lived on their couch for 1 year. And I've now been in LA. God, I've been in LA 43 years. That was 43 and a half years ago. In the early days, it was fun for me. I was penniless. I had no money. I had no car. I had no connections, no girlfriends. And just these friends. And my friends moved back to New York to get married. So I had absolutely nothing going for me, except I had youth and naivete and a desire to break into Hollywood. I had nothing else going for me. And I just interviewed and interviewed. I took buses and buses and buses for years. I didn't have a car in LA. Now, if you know LA, if you don't have a car here, it's pretty bad. It's bad.
It's like the opposite of New York. Nobody has a car in New York.
I left the job at Columbia because I was on a bus 4 hours a day. When I came to LA, I was on a bus for at least 4 hours a day. Again, it was exactly the same thing. I didn't have a car. I finally got a job at the American Film Institute in early 1982. The head of the American Film Institute at the time hired me. She said, "Dan, you and I both graduated at Boston University. I'm going to help you out." So she gave me my first start in LA, and I will be forever grateful to her, because without her, I probably would have curled my tail up between my legs and come back home and slept on my father's couch for the rest of my life. She gave me a start in LA. And then from there, I was there for a few years. Then I got a job at the Playboy Channel, of all things. I became the first publicist ever at the Playboy Channel. That was 40 years ago this week. How's that for something? 40 years ago this week, the first week of 1984. And of course, I had just met my girlfriend, who became my fiance, who became my wife. So I was with a fiance wife while I worked at Playboy. And I was surrounded by, I was working with the most beautiful girls in America, quite often when they were totally nude or in skimpy little bikinis. And I'd have to go home and be with my wife and just think like, don't talk about work. Don't talk about work.
Yeah, right.
That was a really, really crazy time. I met Hugh Hefner several times. I hung out at the Playboy Mansion. I have a picture of me with Hefner. He's a nice guy. So I was there for a few years. Greatest job in the world for a straight man. However, the money really sucked. So then I got my next job out here at Columbia Pictures Television, the movie studios TV department in Burbank. And that job, I started meeting really famous people. I became friends with Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees. He was my childhood hero.
And you already know he was my childhood crush. We've had this conversation.
Right. In 1966, I was 10. The Monkees came onto NBC, and I was absolutely enthralled by the Monkees. It blew my mind. I was a little young when the Beatles came. I loved the Beatles, but I didn't connect to the Beatles. When the Monkees were on TV every week, I fell in love with Mickey Dolenz. So I met him exactly 20 years later in Hollywood. I said, Mickey, I've been playing drums my whole life because of you. He goes, thanks, man. I hear that all the time. So that was really cool. Mickey and I used to have lunch and dinners and drinks, and I knew him in the 80s fairly well. And I met, when you work at a movie studio, Clint Eastwood will wave to you, or you'll see Barbra Streisand walking by, or Richard Dreyfuss. Madonna winked at me once. I said hello to Jim Henson shortly before he passed away. That was cool. That was a really cool job. But again, what happened there? Oh, Coca-Cola owned Columbia Pictures at the time. And after a few years I was there, they eliminated my division. My PR division was for syndicated TV. They eliminated the entire division. So I had no job for 2 months. Then I got a job at a very, very prestigious PR firm here in LA. It was run by a guy named Lee Salters. Lee Salters discovered Barbra Streisand in the early 60s.
Wow.
Lee was a legendary publicist, perhaps the most famous publicist ever. When I worked for him, Lee handled Michael Jackson, Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra, Whitney Houston, Dolly Parton, Jay Leno, Van Halen, I think Paul McCartney, and I know he used to do some projects for Donald Trump because he goes, "Wait, Donald, hold on a minute. I'm not in my office." He'd be on the phone with Donald. He was one of the top publicists who ever lived. I worked for him for 2 years, and I learned a great deal from him. That was really my PhD in publicity, was working for Lee Salters. He was a rough guy, and he would yell and scream at you, but boy, did I learn from him. Then from there, I went to another big PR firm where I worked for almost 8 years. And when I was there, I was a senior vice president, and I started acquiring my own clients. I had clients that were making independent films, special effects, visual effects, makeup effects, theme parks. I just would go to parties or events and say I'm a publicist. And I, for years, just was attracting my own clients, many dozens of my own clients. When I turned 40, it was in 1996, and I realized, wow, I have so many clients. I should, and I was only getting 10% of their income because I worked for another guy's company. So when I turned 40, here's the story. This is a supernatural story. I had a meeting with my boss and some clients right after I turned 40. And I should note, I had clinical depression from the age of 15 to 40 that was undiagnosed. So all through my whole life, I had depression. I didn't know I had it. At 40, I found a psychiatrist, got Prozac. I became undepressed. So about a few days later, after becoming undepressed, I'm at a meeting with my boss and these clients in Beverly Hills, Four Seasons Hotel. And my boss is going on and on about how great he is and how great his company is. And as I'm taking notes, and I have my little suit, my little tie, and I'm like hating my life, because I hated this guy, this boss. I despised him. As he's talking, I heard a voice. This is true. I heard a voice from the ceiling. I looked up above my head. The Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills is a huge chandelier. And I swear to you and my daughter, I heard from the chandelier, Dan, start your own business. I looked up. I said, "What?" I'm like, "What?" And the people at the table, my boss and these two clients, they looked at me. I stood up, and they go, "What's going on?" I said, "I have to go." I got up in the middle of the meeting. I went home. I wrote on a piece of paper how much money I would make if all of my clients now working through his company and me getting 10%, if I had the same exact clients, if I worked from home in my underwear, I'd get 100%, and I would become wealthy. I'd literally become wealthy. So I called all my clients that night. They all said, "Wherever you go, I will go." And a few months later, I had my own company. At the time, it was called Asbury Communications. Now it's Asbury PR Agency. That's how my company started. I probably had 1,000 clients since then, and made a lot of money. I've spent a lot of money as well, but I've had a wonderful career. And that's how my company was born. It was a voice or an angelic guide, a spirit God. I honestly don't know whose voice it was, but it said, "Dan, start your own business." I said, "Okay." Changed my course of my life, changed my entire life. So that brings us today. I still have my own company. I'm in Beverly Hills. This is my office. I work from my home. And my biggest client these days is a very famous restaurant called Musso and Frank Grill in Hollywood. It's Hollywood's oldest restaurant. They're 105 years old. Charlie Chaplin put them on the map in the 1920s. And it's a family-owned business, and representing them has been the highlight of my career, because I've met so many people and had so many meals, and I've had so many martinis at Musso and Frank. You have no idea how many martinis. They pay me pretty much in martinis over there. So I'm still going. I'm 67. No interest in retiring, because I enjoy what I do.
What an amazing journey you've been on.
I know. I didn't realize it until last year. I wrote my first book called Flirting with Fame. It's that green poster behind me. My first book, Flirting with Fame, and the subtitle is "A Hollywood Publicist Recalls 50 Years of Celebrity Close Encounters." So in there, I have my stories about Bruce Springsteen. I knew Jerry Seinfeld before he was famous. I told you I called Meryl Streep a Carla. Such a great story. I spent a day with Steven Spielberg. I spent 2 days with Dr. Ruth. She and I became pretty good friends. Dr. Ruth. I was in Hawaii with Gilligan and the Skipper for a TV show. I mean, I have a picture of me. I have a picture of me and my mother with Mel Brooks, and it looks like I'm with my parents, because they both went to the same high school. And
Oh, wow.
They were talking for 20 minutes, and I have a picture of me, Mel Brooks, and my mother. I met everybody. I've met everyone. I have funny stories. They were all in Flirting with Fame. So that was my career book. That was the first book that I wrote.
Right.
Now, the one I read, the book that you wrote that I read, it's called After They Came, and that was more. It's a science fiction book, right?
Correct. That's
but
right.
It's when I was reading it, and it's a fantastic book. It should be a movie.
Thank you.
And everyone should read it. I don't read a lot of books too. I mean, I don't see as well as I used to, so it's more of a hard for me to read. So something really has to keep me interested, to keep me wanting to go on. And it was just like one of those page turners. I couldn't stop. And but you could tell that you were the person who wrote this book had some inside or intimate experience with strange things.
That's true.
That's what struck me. And that was something that
true.
I wanted to talk to you about that today, how about your experiences. And I think in particular one you had with your father, and you were a child. Wasn't that like a catalyst for you?
Yes, absolutely. So here's my shameless PR plug. Here's my book.
It's a great book. Everybody should read this.
And my friend Nick Pope, Nick Pope wrote it. Mm-hmm. He gave me the quote on the front: "A delightful tale of wonder and hope" by Nick Pope. Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I love it so much. This is my book. It's on Amazon. It's available. You can buy it. My adventure into the UFO extraterrestrial world, as it is, began in March 1970. I was not yet 14. I was almost 14. My father picked me up one day from school, you guys, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and drove me home right near, again, in Asbury Park, New Jersey, right near Asbury. And we're driving home. It was a sunny afternoon. And I was in the passenger seat, obviously. And through the windshield of my father's car was a big, giant silver V, letter V, like Victor, flying craft. It was huge. It was very shiny. It was a V, and it was floating above my father's car. It was about 200 feet above my father's car. It was not moving. It made no noise. It had no propellers. It had no exhaust. It just was there. And I said, Dad, I'm in the car. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. Dad, stop the car. There's a UFO. Dad. He pulled over to the side. We got out of the car. We looked at this giant pyramid from Egypt above my father's car. I'm literally jumping up and down. I'm not even 14. Dad, look, a UFO. We're seeing a UFO. Dad, isn't this the greatest thing? Look, Dad, look. My father looked at it like he was looking at a head of lettuce at the supermarket. He was bored to tears. Absolutely no expression, no interest of any kind. He was bored. And I'll get to that because that's the key to this whole story. He looked at it like it was no big deal. We looked at it for a few minutes. Then he said to me, come on, kid, let's go home. Okay. And as we drove home, I remember it slowly started to move over my neighborhood, very, very slowly. Get to my house. This is 1970. We had a rotary phone. Go and run into the kitchen. I called the Asbury Park Press newspaper on my rotary phone in the kitchen. Hi, this is Danny. I'm almost 14. I saw a UFO in the sky with my dad. I want to report it to the newspaper. And the lady goes, young man, we're getting hundreds of phone calls right now about this. I can't take your call. I don't have time. I'm really sorry, but we know all about it. Click. And she hung up on me. No story ever ran in the paper. No story ever ran. Now, there were no cell phones or video cams in March 1970, So no one captured it. Didn't run in the paper. Now, the amazing thing, and there's many amazing things about that event, but one of them is I completely forgot about it entirely for 47 years. I did not remember that event at all for 47 years.
Wow.
Okay. That was number one. I'm going to give you the key highlights of my path here. That was number one. Cut to 1996. I'm now divorced. My wife and I got divorced. I had 2 kids. I have 2 kids. At the time in 96, my son was 8, my daughter was 6. My ex-wife and my kids moved out to Lancaster, California, which is near Edwards Air Force Base. So I used to visit them. I was living in Culver City at the time. No, I'm sorry. I was living in North Hollywood at the time. I used to visit my kids on the weekends after I got divorced. So when my son was 8, it was May 1996, and he wanted a telescope for his birthday. So I got him a telescope, drove out to see my kids for that weekend. On the night of his birthday, we were looking up at the sky, and Lancaster is the high desert in California. You can see the stars and the planets. Just crystal clear. There's no smog out there. It's beautiful. So through the telescope, we saw the moon, we saw Mars, we saw Saturn. We looked at all the cool stuff you see through a telescope. And as we were going to pack it up and go into the house to go to sleep, I saw a bright, off-white colored, egg-shaped thing in the far right corner of the sky. And it was pretty bright, and it was moving very quickly in a straight line from the right side of the sky in a straight line all the way across the sky to the left part of the sky in an exactly straight line. I said to my son, I said, Jordan, look, there's a satellite. That's a satellite. Had to be. Well, what else could that be? So it went all the way to the far left side of the sky. Then it stopped in place. It stopped in place. Think about that for about 30 seconds. Didn't move. And I thought, oh my God, that satellite's going to plummet to Earth. Something happened. Something's terribly wrong with that satellite. Okay. 30 seconds later, it reversed course and went all the way across the sky, same exact line that it had gone originally. It's back to its source spot. And I'm jumping up and I said, oh my God, what is that? And I said to my son, I said, that's not a meteor. It's not a comet. It's not a plane. It's not a rocket. It's not a missile. It's not a helicopter. That's a UFO. What else could that possibly be? Nothing travels like that. What can hover like that and then go back?
Mm.
I've told that story last year to Jimmy Church, among other people. And Jimmy said, Dan, at Edwards Air Force Base, they test military craft that are using reverse engineered technology. I believe that was Edwards Air Force Base testing something. I really do. I think that one was military. That was my second one. That was 96. Now we come to what year? Now we come to the year 2007. I happened to go into a bookstore one day in LA. It's next to a movie theater. I was waiting for a friend. We were going to go see a movie, and he was late. I went into the bookstore and I saw the paranormal books aisle, and I'd never seen anything like it before. I'd never heard of paranormal, but I didn't know that was a thing. And there's books about the history of ufology and crop circles and the pyramids and Bigfoot and witchcraft and Eric.
Yeah, they used to put it in the occult section here where I lived. And that's where you found it.
It's almost like the porn. It's like the porn section. It's like you don't want to. Don't go back there.
Right
behind the red curtain. Yeah, the little room.
I remember the occult books. Yeah, but this one said paranormal, and I really wasn't familiar with that idea. So I saw all these books, Richard Dolan's book, Eric Van Daniken, Zachariah Sitchin. I'm like, wow. I said, where have these been hiding, and where have I been hiding? I bought about a dozen books in a bag. I had a heavy bag of books. I read all the books, and I realized how much information about the universe I did not know at all. And maybe more importantly, I read about MUFON. I'd never heard of MUFON. I didn't know what MUFON was. I never heard of it. This is 2007. So I looked up MUFON, and they just resurrected them again. They have monthly meetings at the time it was in Studio City. And so I joined MUFON LA in 2007. The first and every month meeting had a guest speaker. Well, boy, did I get lucky. My very first guest speaker for my very first MUFON, Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Oh, wow.
This is Dan Harary, ufology class 101, right? And it's Giorgio. Now, this is 2 years before the Ancient Aliens TV show.
Mm-hmm.
He did 90 minutes, essentially, on everything we've since seen on Ancient Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Roswell, the pyramids, Eric Van Daniken's theories, the Easter Island statues, Stonehenge, petroglyphs, cave drawings, Betty and Barney Hill, Travis Walton. It was like the greatest hits. It was the greatest hits of ufology. I was like this. I was like, oh my God. And I literally had tears. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself, this is all the information my parents, my teachers, and my rabbi never told me when I was a kid. This is like human history that no one knows about, but some people apparently do. Mm-hmm. It blew me away. I cried. That's how amazed I was. I went up to Giorgio afterwards. I shook his hand. I think I hugged him. I said, Giorgio, thank you, man. I said, you just changed my entire view of the world just now. He goes, cool. Thank you. That's really cool. So that's true. That was the beginning of my modern era. That was 07. 1 year later, in 08, I had a girlfriend named Barbara. She was a writer for TV. And she and I went to a MUFON meeting in 08. And Deb, do you know the name James Gilliland?
Yeah.
You know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
In 08, one of the MUFON meetings, the guest speaker was James Gilliland. Now, he owns the ECETI Ranch. It wasn't called ECETI at the time. but it's now called the Isetti Ranch. It's in Washington State at the base of Mount Adams. Many, many acres of land at the base of Mount Adams. And he spoke, I think it was in June, May or June of '08, and he said, 4th of July weekend, '08, 3 days, I'm having seminars and lectures at my property. Come out, come stay at the ranch, and at night we're going to sky watch for UFOs. Now, during this MUFON presentation, he was showing films and videos and slides, still pictures of classic UFO flying saucers in the sky above Mount Adams. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like the Holy Grail. This is like Bethlehem of ufology right here. Yeah. So I begged this girlfriend, I said, please, can we go? Please, can we go? She said, okay. So we spent 3 days at James Gilliland Ranch, July 4th, '08 weekend. Friday was like people like Nick Pope and William Henry and people speaking and showing films and lectures and slides and panels and all that stuff. There was a movie about orbs, I remember, which I'd never heard of. And then at night, they built a bonfire on the field, and people would sing and play guitars and tambourines and dance around the fire, and we'd look skyward. So the first night was Friday. We're looking up for hours and hours, and your neck hurts after a while when you're looking up. You guys know this. Friday night, hours and hours, absolutely nothing. Okay, fine. Second day, lectures, panels, seminars, films, the fire with the dancing and the guitars. The next night, the Saturday night, we're looking up in the sky for hours and hours and hours, absolutely nothing. And my neck was hurting, and I'm thinking, man, this isn't going to happen. This is just not going to happen. There's no chance. The third and final day was a Sunday. More lectures, films, and seminars, fire, dancing, guitars. Looking up for maybe an hour and a half, nothing. I grabbed my car keys. I said to my girlfriend, I said, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat the traffic. No sooner did I say those words. I don't know how big it was. A black craft appeared above our heads from nowhere, just appeared above our heads. It was so black against the black sky. To this day, I don't know how big it was or what shape it was. I couldn't tell you. But it hovered above, it cut off the moonlight above us. And we all looked up, and this thing was above us, a few hundred feet. And underneath the craft was a large, let's call it glass or crystal dome, right in the dead center underneath. And the dome, he started to burst out. I'm sorry, my brother just called. Started to burst out very bright emerald green light from this dome. Very, very bright, beautiful emerald green light, like emerald green from the Wizard of Oz, that color green.
Nice.
And above us, like beep, 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 the light. It was almost like Morse code, now that I think about it. And we were all looking up and absolutely mesmerized, all of us. It was like classic, the scenes in the X-Files when, Gillian Anderson and Duchovny, and there's something remarkable, and they're like that awe face. 200 people were like, oh my God, there it is, look at that, right above us. And the feeling I got from the light, which I can still feel it in my heart to this day, this is in 2008, the feeling I got was, hello, we're here, we're in the neighborhood, we wanted to say hello, we know you've been waiting for us, sorry, it took us a couple days to get here, we love you, everything's cool, don't be afraid, have a nice evening, be well, be kind to others, all was wonderful. It went on maybe 12 times. Then it stopped, the light stopped flashing. And then the thing took off. It just took off and vanished. I cried. I just started to cry. I was like, Barbara, I can't believe it. She goes, I know. We were crying. People were crying, hugging, kissing. It was a remarkable moment in my life. Really, truly a remarkable moment in my life. And again, I can still feel it right here.
Yeah, I've heard similar stories from people who've gone to his ranch for his. He had those often. I wanted to go. I thought it would be really cool to go sometime. I never got a chance to, but I'll give you a little secret. I do a lot of sky watching, and I have neck issues.
Right.
So I bought one of those gravity chairs so I can like flat out just like lay down and look straight up.
That would have been very helpful, Deb, for that
Yes.
weekend. Yeah, that would have
The
been
only
great.
problem is I end up nodding off if
My-
I get too comfortable.
I probably would too. So after that, I knew instinctively that was not man-made. That was
Mhm.
not. I knew. I just felt. I still feel it. That was not human beings in there. That was not a China balloon, China weather balloon.
Mhm.
That was something extraordinary. And so I believe that one craft was extraterrestrial. Okay, so that was '08. Now, I'm raising kids. I have my business. I'm chasing after women who won't give me the time of day. All the usual stuff in my life for years and years and years. Now we come to the year 2017, which is 7 years ago now, right? 2017. My father passed away April 2017 in Florida. I said goodbye to him. My brother and I said goodbye. He had stage 4 cancer and Alzheimer's at the end. He didn't know who he was. My brother and I said goodbye to him before he passed. So I get the call. So I went to a deli in LA to get a pastrami sandwich for lunch and to mourn my father in my own way. I go to this deli. I ordered my sandwich. The guy walked away. And now this is a true story, and it's absolutely very hard to believe, but this really happened to me. I was sitting there minding my own business, thinking about my dad. A beam of energy or light or something, a beam from heaven or God or the universe shot into my head right here, the right side of my head. Hard, a beam shot into my head. Through my eyes, I then projected a home movie that I watched just like I'm looking at you guys right now. I saw being projected through my eyes the 1970 UFO sighting I had with my father. I watched it. 47 years later, I watched it. I was like, oh my God, what is happening to me? I am seeing a buried, not just recalling. My mother goes, oh, you remembered an old member. No, I didn't remember it, Mom. I watched it. It played for me like an old home movie. I watched it. I saw me and my dad at the car and the V, and I'm jumping up and down. And my dad looking at this thing like he was bored. But then at the end of this home movie, here's this remarkable part of this home movie. At the end of this, my dad winked at me. And he said, come on, let's go home. Winked at me. Think about that for a second. And he said, let's go home. Then it shut down. The movie stopped playing. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Then, for whatever reason, I asked my waiter for a pen. I said, can I have a pen? He gave me a pen. On the white paper placemat on my table before me was a piece of paper placemat. I took a pen. My hand, not me, my hand then wrote the following things. Write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C, and then my hand stopped moving. Okay, so now I'm like, what the hell is happening here? I look at it, I go, well, I guess I'm supposed to write a book about benevolent aliens. I guess my dad must have known about UFOs, and I couldn't figure out ATC. I'm like, hey, what is that? What is that? And then it occurred to me, it meant after they came. That was the title of my book. It was given to me. It was given to me from above. Literally was given unto me. I finished that pastrami sandwich. I raced home, and every day and night for the next 8 months, I wrote that book. Now, here's what I've not yet mentioned. My dad was an electronics engineer and a physicist for the U.S. Army for 45 years, 1951 to 1996. My father did top secret work for the military. He never discussed his work with anyone, including my mother. After he died, I did research and I discovered my father helped to invent military drones. How's that? My father was one of the people that helped to invent military drones. He did tell us that he always worked with radar and missiles. We knew he did radar and missiles, but we didn't know about the drones. I called my mother after he died. I said, Mom, did Dad ever talk about UFOs? He worked for the Army for 45 years. She said, early in his career in the 50s. Now, my dad started at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey in 1951. That's only 4 years after Roswell. Think about that for a minute, right?
Mhm.
That's pretty close to Roswell.
Yes.
She said in the early 50s, they took my dad deep into the vaults at Fort Monmouth. I love this story. And they showed him something top secret. He came home. My mother said he was pale and sweating and shaking. My mother said, honey, what's wrong? He said, I saw something today at the fort I can never tell you or anyone about as long as I live. My mother said he was never the same after that day. And he never did. He never told anyone that whatever he saw that day to his dying day, he never did tell anybody what that was. So if we put all these clues together, my dad worked for the military, 45 years, top secret. He invented drones. He saw something top secret that he couldn't tell. Well, it had to be an alien or a craft. What else? What else could it possibly have been that would have scared my father to that level? Okay, so he saw something. He saw a UFO with me that any other person on the planet except my father would have been jumping up and down, either scared to death or thrilled to death. My father was like looking at his watch. He's like, oh yeah, we should go have dinner, I guess. No interest. He knew what that thing was. And the killer, he winked at me. My dad winked at me, right? So after he died, I realized that my father was involved with military drones, man-made military drones, created at Fort Monmouth using reverse engineered alien technology. I am 100% convinced that's the case. I believe that my dad from heaven, some people have said that maybe extraterrestrials sent me that message, that home movie. Steve Bassett, one of my best friends now, said, Dan, I think it was from ET. I said, no, I think it was from my father from heaven. My dad couldn't tell me his whole life what he did for a living. But 3 days after he died, my dad sent me a home movie from heaven that said, hey, Danny, I could never tell you my top secret work with UFOs, but I'm going to tell you from heaven. Here's the whole movie. Figure it out. So that was a gift. I believe my father gave me that as a gift after he passed away, that home movie. And that inspired the writing of my book.
Nice.
The book is great. And the thing I like about it is that, you said it's been the aliens aren't nowadays. All you hear is, everything is threatening and everything is scary and everybody's in danger. And in your book, it was not like that. Just like Nick said, it had hope in it. It was a
delightful tale of wonder and hope.
Yes, it was. They were actually friendly, I guess, or cared about.
Absolutely. Well, I wrote that out of just my imagination. Mm-hmm. And as I'm writing it, I'm like, why can't this is my book, right? I'm writing the book. So I'm the God, I'm the creator of the book. I can do whatever I want with the book. It's fiction. Right. And, so many, like you said, War of the Worlds, Independence Day. There's a famous Twilight Zone called To Serve Man.
Oh, yeah, I just saw that the other day.
Which is so great. I know, I've watched it recently too. So many classic Hollywood presentations are aliens coming to kill us or eat us or both. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you know what? Why can't they come and be nice? Now Trump had just become elected president. When I started writing this book, I'm like, we need some kindness in the world instead of everything so divisive. So I wrote my aliens are benevolent. The basic storyline is as follows. A man turns 70 years old in LA. He's a failed businessman in LA. He turns 70. He hates his job. He hates his life. His kids don't speak to him. He's unlucky in love. And all he wants to do is kill himself. He just has no interest in continuing his life. So on his 70th birthday, he drives out to Malibu, takes off his clothes, drinks vodka, takes pills, swims out to sea in the Pacific Ocean and drowns. Those are the first 10 pages of my book. Is the lead character drowns right off the bat. He's drowning. right? And Deb, as you know, so as he's drowning, a huge UFO comes out of the Pacific Ocean, enormous craft that just be beyond human description. It comes right out of the Pacific because it knew he was going to be there. You later find out, and it beams this man on board, saves his life, slowly hovers over all of Los Angeles, and stops at Dodger Stadium. Now I ripped that off from um, the day the Earth stood still. I mean, I really did. I ripped it off. But no one's ever done Dodger Stadium, so I came up with that one. But it's basically it's the day the Earth stood still. It hovers over Dodger Stadium, and all the media go there, the army and the military and the police and ambulances and the sirens, because this huge thing from another world is now hovering above Dodger Stadium. Clearly, this is not man-made. 3 beams of light come down from the craft. Tall, 7-foot tall, beautiful man, long white hair, pale skin, sky blue eyes, magnificent, tall white Nordic alien. Then his daughter comes down, equally beautiful. And then they beam down this guy. Now, this guy's naked because he was swimming in the Pacific Ocean, drowning. So they beam him down. He's still dripping wet, like from Pacific Ocean water. And he beamed down. They all beam down. And they go, the aliens go, people of Earth, we are here. And this is like the message I got from the green light, right? People of Earth, don't be afraid. We love you. We're here to protect you. We've been visiting your planet for hundreds of thousands of years. We decided now would be a good time for us to help solve your problems. And by the way, we just saved this guy's life. And this guy is important to us. We have a relationship with this man. He's important to us. This man will be our conduit here on planet Earth. If you want us and our technology to solve your problems, you have to go through this guy. You bring your problems to this guy, and we're going to meet with this guy once a month, ongoing for the next few years. And we are going to solve whatever problems we can solve for you. And then they leave. The aliens leave. Well, this guy is laying there naked on second base, and he's look up. He goes, "Oh, what the hell just happened to me?" And now he's the most. They bring him from there. They bring him to Washington D.C. He meets the president of the United States. I based the president on Oprah Winfrey. It's an African American woman in her 70s. I based it on Oprah Winfrey. Her name is President Tamika Winfield. It's Oprah Winfrey is the president in the movie. In the movie Deb, it's Oprah Winfrey. Yeah. And she's like, "Who the hell are you? Like, why did the aliens save your life and say, they love you? And what's that?" He goes, "Madam President, I don't have the slightest. I have no clue. I have the slightest idea what's happening." He goes, I was drowning myself. I hate my life. I just want to be dead. I wanted my life to be over. And now I'm with you, the President of the United States. It's still my 70th birthday. What's happening? The aliens alter this guy's life from utter crap. They bring it all the way. He wins the Nobel Peace Prize. He becomes a multimillionaire, world famous, the most beloved man on the planet. He and the aliens solve every problem: hunger, clean water, poverty, anger, prejudice. They eliminate guns. They eliminate nuclear weapons. They end war. They clean they reverse climate change. They do I'm like, what are the problems? I wrote all the problems out, and then I said, how am I going to solve all of these? I solved every single problem. By the end of the book, he's the most famous man in the world. He's a hero. He's reunited with his children. He falls in love with this beautiful female doctor. They get married. They have kids. And it's a Wonderful Life meets Close Encounters meets Day the Earth Stood Still. That's my book.
It's so, I don't know. It's one of those books where once I started, I couldn't stop because I wanted to know what the next thing was. And something in the back of my mind now, I know, it's fiction and everything, but something felt so authentic to me in my soul about certain things that you talked about, that it felt like they were some of the messages that I was getting as I read the book and the stories felt like they were coming from somewhere else besides the book. You know what I'm saying? I felt like they were all possibilities, in some other reality or whatever. I don't know. I felt so, somehow it felt like, yeah, this is truth, more so than maybe what you would think on the surface in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Has anybody else
Yeah,
ever said that to you?
that's very sweet. And I wrote the characters that had life in the book, that had the most lines and the most things to do. I wrote them based on people I knew in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in the book, the lead character discovers his late father was a scientist who worked for the military, who was involved with UFO research and had even befriended an alien 50 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That was a tribute to my father, of course. That was when I wrote the lead character's dad. Well, that was my dad that I was writing. So I wrote a lot of the characters based on real people. The other stuff, Deb, maybe I challenge. What's the word?
Channeled. Yeah.
Channeled, because that automatic writing I did at the deli. I'd
Mm-hmm.
never done that before or since, ever. That in the whole movie, that never happened to me before or since. So I think if it wasn't my dad, listen, if it wasn't my dad, it could have been God. It could have
Mm-hmm.
been the ETs that spoke to me with the emerald green light years earlier. Something extraordinary
Yes.
gave me the book. I was almost I was like it was like a download.
Yeah.
I was given the book as a download, and then all I had to do was write it. But it took me
Yeah.
8 months.
This is the story that somebody somewhere wanted to be told and wanted people to hear it. And I think it's like, for certain people, when they read it or hear it and hopefully see it in the movies one day,
Well, I hope so.
it
I'm working
will
on that.
it will trigger something, like a Johnny Appleseed planting little seeds of hope everywhere. And my big thing was, after I did the Observers, my ended the entire Observers movie documentary. My last word were, "Don't be afraid." I don't know why. And I got down on my knees that morning before we filmed, and in the hotel room, I was so nervous. And I said, "Whoever put me here, whatever you brought me here for, please make come out of my mouth what you brought me here to say. Make the words come out of me that you need me to say. I'm the vessel here. Just help me." Because I was scared shitless, being in front of the camera and all the filming and all the stuff they did for that the Observers documentary that was on Amazon Prime, I
Wow.
think.
Yeah.
So
And your response was, "I like pickles."
no,
Oh, okay.
I do like pickles, but no. The last thing, the producer asked me a question, and he said, if there was one thing that I wanted to tell everyone out there listening that was like me, who had had experiences like me, what would that be? And that's when it just, like, I had one of those moments like you had, and I opened my mouth and the words came out, "Don't be afraid."
Well,
And
you were attuned, Deb, to something bigger. You were attuned to something larger because of your experiences earlier in your life.
well, I think that you are as well. And I feel like, even though that book is a work of fiction, there was a message in that book that was intended to come out, and then you were the one to bring it forward.
I think it was a gift. It was a
Yeah.
gift given to me from above. It was literally from above, and
Literally.
because
Yeah.
I went to get a deli sandwich and think about how where am I going to spread my father's ashes, because my stepmother was mailing me my father's ashes. I had to find a place to sprinkle my dad. I did not go to the deli to write a UFO book. Now, here's what's interesting. So I wrote the book in 2018. It took me a while to write it. I then shopped it around to agents, publishers, and movie producers for years and years and years. Oh, sounds good. Can't help you. Sounds good. Can't help nothing. I got hundreds. I got so many. I have a pile of rejections. Absolutely nothing. So I thought, well, I wrote this book. It was given to me from above. Nothing will ever happen. No one will ever see it. In 2021, late 2021, I heard about a company called Genius Books in Milwaukee, of all places. A friend told me about it. I wrote to them. They said, yeah, send it over. We'll take a look. I sent it to them. They go, yeah, this is a cute little story. We'll publish it. I go, really? You're going to publish my book? That's unbelievable. That's fantastic. No, I'm sorry, late 2022 it was. So it came out in March 2023, it got published. Now that month, I went to Alien Con in Pasadena to promote it. I had a stand there, and there I met Nick Pope. I met Giorgio again. I met Eric Von Daniken. I met Paul Hynek. I met George Knapp. I met Jeremy Corbell. I met a million people. David Childress. I met everybody there, and I gave them all copies of my book. And then, Deb, a few weeks later is when I met you at UFO Con San Francisco. Now, I met two other people there who are still in my life. Ella LeBain. Do you know Ella LeBain? Ella LeBain was at a table across from your table.
Okay.
She is a biblical scholar. She has a six-book series called Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo. And she has been analyzing the Bible for references to gods, ETs, angels, demons, spirits, all these things. She's put together a whole history of who God really is and who the ETs really are. Each book is the size of a phone book. I'm reading book 1 right now. Wow. It's a 6-book series. The other person I met, Deb, who was next to my table, is a guy named Mark Glenn Moore. Mark is a lifelong experiencer. He's about 55. I gave him my book when we met there. He was there to talk about how he'd been getting abducted by Pleiadians since the age of 5. He's now 55. So for 50 years, every so often, he has been getting abducted by Pleiadians. And he says they're beautiful, magnificent, tall whites, men and women. They put him and others on a ship. Every time, it's always the same people. And they put them in a huge classroom, like with a huge blackboard. And they're teaching him and the others how to be kind to human beings, how to treat the earth properly, all messages of love, hope, and peace. So I happened to give him my book. I said, Mark, you look like a good guy. Let's be friends. Here's my book. Less than a month, 3 weeks later, Mark called me. He goes, Dan, I just read your book. He said, how did you know to recount in your book exactly my experiences that I've had my whole life with these tall whites? How did you know that? He goes, what you wrote is exactly what I've been experiencing my entire life. He goes, it was like reading my life story. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, it's one of the greatest books I've ever read. It has to be a movie. I'm going to tell all my friends. And he goes, Dan, clearly this book was given to you as a gift from above. I said, wow, okay. So, yeah, I don't know why or how. Okay, so anyway, also at UFO Con, I met Stephen Bassett. You probably know Steve Bassett, who Stephen Bassett is.
I know. I know the name, and I've probably met him a couple times, but I don't know him well.
Okay, so Steve Bassett he and Stephen Greer, the two Stevens, are the top disclosure advocates in the United States. Mm-hmm. Steve Bassett has been working for disclosure in Washington, D.C. since 1996. Before that, he worked with Dr. John Mack. He was an apprentice with Dr. John Mack, which is a whole nother story. So Stephen has been advocating for disclosure by the president and the U.S. Congress since 1996. I met him the same weekend I met you. I gave him my book, I gave him my card. I said, if you're ever in LA, let's have lunch. So he called me a few months later. We met in LA, we had lunch. He said, Dan, what can we do together? And I looked at him, and out of the blue, this is another download, I guess. Out of the blue, I said, let's create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. I didn't even know what it was, Deb. I just made up those words. I said, let's create the Hollywood Disclosure. He goes, yeah, let's do that. We shook hands. That was June 1st. On November 1st of last year, we launched the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance in Hollywood. I'm the chairman. Stephen is the executive director. We have 100 members around the world, including you, Deb. You're a member.
Yes, I am.
And we are putting together, we are putting together Hollywood producers, directors, writers, and performers with UAP and UFO ET experiencers researchers, and advocates. Stephen is an advocate. You're an experiencer. And we're putting them together so that they can talk amongst themselves. And we're going to start having monthly meetings in March, live meetings, so they can all talk amongst themselves about how to further their experiences, their real life experiences in film, TV, documentaries, and literature. And also how we can all work together to move disclosure forward with the president and Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. It's been remarkable. It was my idea. I came out of the clear blue sky. I am now the chairman of the HDA. I get emails every day from around the world. We have 100 people. 10 of them, I think, are from international. And this book gave me the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. It led to that. Clearly, I was meant to do that. I have Dee Wallace, my friend, the mother from E.T. She's on there. Thomas Jane is a movie star. He's on our board of directors. Nick Pope just joined our board of directors today. Richard Dolan is a member. Jason Martell is a member. Chase Klutsky, Dr. Lynn Katai, Kathy Martin, Betty and Barney Hill's niece. You probably know her, Deb, right?
I know. Yeah, I know Kathy pretty good.
Yeah, so Kathy's a member as well.
Good.
It's just a remarkable thing. The other thing I'd like to say is today Thursday?
Yeah.
It is Thursday.
Okay, so a week from not right now, but a week from tonight, 1 week from tonight, I am launching my own podcast, which is another gift I got from my book. It's a week from tonight. It's called Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. I'm the host. It will be the same background you see now, but I'll have party lights, so it'll be funkier and more mysterious. But it's the same set back there. And Margie Kay, who owns the KUNX, the UNX network in St. Louis, Missouri, she was kind enough to offer me a podcast. And she said she's always wanted to do something that was from Hollywood. And I said, well, I'm the perfect guy to do it. So my first guest will be Dee Wallace from ET, and then Steve Bassett, and I have Nick Pope, I have Richard Dolan, I have Thomas Jane, I have Paul Hynek, I have all kinds of people lined up. It'll be every Thursday night, 10 to 11 p.m. Pacific, live for 1 hour. And so between the book and the HDA and my podcast, all these things, and all my new friends like you, Deb, I mean, all the hundreds of friends I've made since I wrote the book, all these things were a gift. And I'd like to say it was a gift from my dad. I think my dad gave me a gift right after he passed. And he said, here you go, take the ball, kid.
That's awesome.
Right. Now, I want to digress in the conversation a little bit, because you said you found the library full of paranormal books. What was your take from that, as far as, what was the knowledge that you got from those books? What questions did it bring up to you? Kind of where are you at on that, I guess?
Sure. I'd say, Greg, the big picture was I had a very linear education, my parents were fairly religious Jews when I was a little kid. So I went to Hebrew school. I went to Sunday school. I had a bar mitzvah. We had a very strict rabbi. We learned a lot from rabbi. We went to public school, of course. Went to Boston University College. Everything was very, very linear. Nothing remotely supernatural, paranormal, or extraordinary. Not even close. Not even close. Never challenged, how did Moses really part the Red Sea? Oh, yeah, God helped. Oh, God helped him. Oh, okay. How did the Israelis build the pyramids? Oh, ropes and pulleys. Okay, yeah, I guess so. Right? Linear all the way through. Then you go to the paranormal and you read. First of all, I think the first book was Eric Von Däniken, and I read was Chariots of the Gods.
Oh, that's a classic.
A classic. And I read that, and I'm like, oh my God, why isn't this taught? Why
doesn't it make sense?
Why didn't I read this book in 8th grade? Why didn't my teacher, even if they said it's fiction, right? Nothing. I had never been exposed to any of those things. And then you dig deeper, Betty and Barney Hill's abduction, and you read Richard Dolan, how the military and the government have been covering everything up since the 30s and the 40s. and Zachariah Sitchin, and Nibiru. I don't know about Nibiru, the Planet X and all that. That sounds like it could have happened to me. And then Hoagland with there's bases on Mars, there's bases on the moon. Oh, then you go, really? Oh my God, how come we don't know this stuff? How come no one is teaching this up? And then Ancient Aliens came on TV. I believe it was 2009. Well, when that show came, it was like, holy S word. Here it is. This is the lost information that none of us were given. The younger generation, I guess, will grow up with ancient alien theory, and they'll know about many of these things. But boy, and now when you revisit just Moses alone, right? Moses in Exodus, parts the Red Sea. Well, there was a craft in the sky. Do you know this? And I'm going to read this to you. This is the very, very first page of my book. This is from Exodus in the Hebrew Bible. Okay. This is from Exodus, Hebrew. This is about Moses and the Israelites wandering through the desert. The Lord went before the Israelites by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. Well, that's a UFO.
Right.
That's an enormous UFO. Exodus 13:21-22. That's a UFO. That was above Moses and the Israelites. It did not depart from the people. Okay. How did Moses part the Red Sea? The UFO helped him. How did Moses get the 10 Commandments? The UFO helped him. Moses talked to a burning bush. That was the UFO was talking to him. When Moses descended Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, he was in the Bible, he was glowing because he had been gone so long. He was glowing. They said he maybe had radiation or something. He was on board a UFO on a craft. It explains so much. It explains so many things, and that's just Moses. Then you get to Jesus. Well, then your mind can really explode, because if Jesus was the Son of God, and God is by definition extraterrestrial, Jesus at the minimum is half extraterrestrial just by definition, if he's the Son of God. So you get to Jesus and his miracles. Well, okay. Then you get to Ezekiel and his dream, the wheel within the wheel. And he was taken aboard and shown the future and shown the universe, and they brought him back down, and he was telling everyone, hey, I traveled. The book of Enoch talks about Enoch was taken and shown the universe by extraterrestrials. The book of Enoch was not put into the regular Hebrew Bible. It was excluded from the Hebrew Bible. According to Eric von Daniken, it was too controversial to put in the Hebrew Bible. It explains this is an old guy who traveled the universe with extraterrestrials. Why couldn't that have been in the Bible? Why not? Why weren't we taught that?
And I think a lot of, I was going to say, a lot of the things they had they didn't have the words to describe things like we have today. So they used their time period,
Sure. There was no airplane or craft or vehicle. Mm-hmm. They didn't have that. They barely had wheels, right?
Right.
The ropes and pulleys. My mother says, they built the pyramids with the ropes and pulleys. Each of those stones is what, like 10, 20 tons? Yeah. And they pulled millions of stones by ropes and pulleys from the Nile. I don't think so. Probably, no. I really don't think so. That's not how that happened. The Easter Island Moai, huge, there's 30-foot tall statues. Apparently, after they were sculpted, they walked. Did you ever hear this? They walked into place. They were described as walking into place until they rested. This is all extraterrestrial stuff. This is not normal mankind stuff. This is from others, and we were not taught this hidden information. So all my friends and relatives, they know I'm so into this. Some of them are open-minded. Some of my people think I'm just absolutely batshit crazy. But I'm very passionate because I say, look, you think I'm crazy. I've been studying this stuff for 20 years. When you study it, and with an open mind and an open heart, if you study it, really study it, and watch documentaries and read books, you know, and meet the Eric Von Daniken and the Giorgios and the Paul Hyneks and the Steve Bassett's. I've met all these people. I know these people. This is not bullshit. This stuff is real, and so we're just hoping to spread the word. This is not a cult. This is not Scientology. This is real humankind history that we were not given, and that's why I'm so passionate about it.
I agree. Reality is, I believe that the history of humanity, as we've been taught, is nowhere near the actual truth of the matter. That we know jack really about where we come from, how long we've been here. I have the feeling that I personally feel like we may have done this before. I mean, maybe here on this planet, maybe on another planet. I mean, we got technologically advanced and then screwed up and ended up back on, in the caves again and worked our way back up again. I mean, I fully believe that history that we're taught in school is nowhere near factual. And I don't know how anybody could possibly know. I mean,
the history that we know is written by man. And I think that's part of the problem as well, because everything gets lost in translation. I can tell you, I went down to the Ohio River, I casted out a line, I pulled back in a 3-inch guppy. But when I tell you the story, I'm going to tell you I pulled out a 12-inch largemouth bass. And I mean, that's how I'm going to write it down. So now my son sees it. He goes, wow, he said a 12-inch. Well, I think he told me at one point it was 15. His son is going to go, Grandpa did this? No, he said it was 20. So, I mean, the more you look at it, and it's the same with ancient text. If man grabs a hold of it, it's their perception of what they want it to make things out to be.
Right. That's
and it's hard for me to get behind a lot of ancient texts and books and stuff like that have been translated so many times in so many different ways and so many different languages that we're losing the meaning and the true story in translation.
Well, plus if you add in, Greg, various ice ages, the dinosaurs, the great floods, the missing continent of Atlantis. Mankind on the earth has probably had several do-overs. Okay, let's say it's God. And I'm sure there is a God. There has to be God, because God had to have created the aliens, so there has to be God. Let's just give it that. Here's my theory. God created the heaven and earth. Everything goes, okay, this is cool. Need some life on Earth. He put the dinosaurs there. They were there for hundreds of millions of years. He couldn't have been too upset about dinosaurs right off the bat. Either he got tired of them, and some friends of mine floated this recently to me, what if the ETs were flying by the Earth? They go, wow, look at that beautiful planet down there. Let's check it out. Well, there's dinosaurs down there and T-Rexes. We can't hang there. These idiot huge thing, they'll eat us. So maybe they sent the asteroid or asteroids that ruined it. I mean, the dinosaurs were wiped out relatively quickly after hundreds of millions of years, and suddenly the dinosaurs are gone. Well, someone planned that. That had to have been planned. Then, there's talk in the Bible about giants. My daughter's obsessed with giants. Well, maybe there was a race of giants. David and Goliath. Goliath was a one-eyed giant. Some people think Bigfoot was an extraterrestrial hybrid with mankind that didn't go quite right. It's part Neanderthal caveman, part ET. It came out to be Bigfoot. Well, Bigfoot isn't that communicative. Maybe they're like, no, he's not there. He's not quite right. Let's do another do-over. So human history has had quite a few do-overs. Göbekli Tepe, wherever in Turkey or wherever Göbekli Tepe is, these structures that are way older than anything other structure on the earth that we even know about. Well, that had to be made by men, by physical men carrying stones and things.
And the steps are huge. I mean, who were these giant steps built to walk up?
Right.
Because it certainly ain't us.
Right. My son years ago went to Machu Picchu, and he called me. He goes, "Dad, we had to climb the steps." He goes, "These steps were not made for normal men. They were made for giants because
Mhm.
this in between each step," he said, was just enormous. So, well, if giants made Machu Picchu at the top of a mountain, well, that would make sense to me.
Mhm.
If giants lugged the stones for Stonehenge and those enormous stones and put them upright, giants, well, maybe, okay, maybe giants did that. That could make sense to me, right? There's so much we don't know. There's just so much
So
we
much.
don't
Mhm.
know.
Have you ever, and I've always been fascinated with and wonder, have you heard of these out of place artifacts, things that they dig up that should not have existed in the time period that they were found in,
Sure, sure. Well,
those
there's
things.
The Piri Reis map. The
Yes.
Piri Reis map has Antarctica detailed from the sky perfectly before there was any ice in Antarctica. It was made by human beings from the sky, and there's no ice in Antarctica. Well, they say that had to be hundreds of thousands. Who made that map? Where did that map come from? There's some kind of time. I think it was like a timekeeping computer or something found in the ocean off of Greece. It was a fluke artifact. It was some kind of a machine. It was found, I think it was found in the 1800s, and it's some kind of futuristic machine that could calculate the stars and the planets and all. It was like a computer. It was completely out of time and place. There's so much stuff I don't think anyone on our planet really knows the whole picture, really. Maybe the ETs, if the ETs come and say, hey, like in my book, hey, not only have we been here, we helped to craft mankind. I have that line. We helped
Mhm.
to craft mankind. So if they come and they say, look, you humans, it's time you learned. We've been here for 5 million years. We killed the dinosaurs. We messed up and we created Bigfoot. That was an accident. That was an oopsie. The ET, we built the pyramids. We built Stonehenge. You can imagine, like, everyone watching TV go, oh, that explains now I
Yeah.
understand. That would be great.
Right.
We got a question from one of our watchers
The,
here. It
pe-
just
the
happens to
peanut
be.
gallery, JV.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever get full disclosure?
JV, I have friends in Washington, D.C., Stephen Bassett and Danny Sheehan. Danny Sheehan is a very, very famous attorney, and they're both on the board of directors of my alliance. And they are working with Chuck Schumer and with Tim Burchett in the House of Representatives so that this year there are more hearings in the House and in the Senate, and to encourage more whistleblowers to come forward, um, to protect them from imprisonment or having the IRS, take their money or them losing their pensions. I think the reason my dad never told anyone, Deb, his secrets was my dad couldn't wait to retire and get his pension. In those days, the World War II era people that worked for the government, they were not going to jeopardize their pension. There was no
Right.
chance of that. My dad was sworn to secrecy his whole career, and he never told me, my brothers, or my mother not one word. He was not going to screw up his pension. So anyway, my group is called Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Many people in my group, Richard Dolan certainly, people are working toward the prospect of disclosure. What is disclosure as described by the ufology world? Disclosure is President Biden, or God forbid, Orange Jesus, President Trump again, God forbid, the Orange Jesus. Whoever's president goes on TV and says, ladies and gentlemen, we have something to tell you. Its time has come. We want you to know extraterrestrials exist. They've been existing for a very long time. We know all about them. We have relationships with them. It was top secret for military and security reasons, but they've asked us to share this information with you now. That day will be disclosure day number 2, D-Day number 2. And JV, I'm 67. I hope I live to see it. My mother's 89. My mother hopes to see disclosure. So it could happen this year. We're getting closer. Dave Grush moved the ball forward. Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, when they wrote the New York Times article in 2017, front page New York Times, that the government is studying UFOs still, that opened the modern day floodgates. And again, I think 2024 could be the year of disclosure. So I'm hopeful.
Oh, I'm hopeful too. The Hollywood Alliance Disclosure Project. What kind of things are you guys doing in particular to help things along? I mean,
well, like I mentioned earlier, Steve Bassett and Danny Sheehan are both on the board, and they've been meeting with Chuck Schumer and Tim Burchett and other House of Representative people. What's his name? Marco Rubio. Other people in Washington. They're both based in Washington, Danny and Steve Bassett. They meet and they are encouraging our senators and our representatives keep holding hearings, move the ball forward, have these hearings televised for the world so we can all see them. And they're pushing and pushing disclosure forward. It needs to come through Washington, D.C. Let's face it, disclosures, unless they land in Dodger Stadium, like in my book, or in the White House lawn or Times Square on New Year's Eve, unless they do something like that, it's going to take. It's the U.S. government's going to be the leader, because if we say, yeah, they're here, then the Prime Minister of England will say, yeah, okay, we had to wait for America. They went first. Yes, of course we know. Israel completely knows. Israel knows. Israel, they probably know more than most countries. Russia absolutely knows. The key powerhouse countries in the world know. The Vatican a few years ago said, if extraterrestrials are real, God made them as well, and we welcome them to Earth. Okay, the Vatican.
Yeah, that's like its own country. So
okay, the Vatican said, if they're real, we welcome them, and God made them, and we're all brothers under God.
Mm-hmm.
Why would the Vatican have said that?
Yeah.
President Reagan in the 80s gave a talk at the UN, and he said, I often wonder what would happen if all the countries of the world were exposed to a threat from out of this world. Wouldn't we all come together and fight off that same alien threat? Reagan said that out loud.
Yeah, he did say that. I heard him.
Reagan knew. Reagan absolutely knew. Mm-hmm. So some of our presidents have known. There's clips of Jimmy Kimmel interviewing Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. They're all on YouTube. If you watch those clips, you see how uncomfortable Obama was. He's like, Jimmy, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. I can't tell you. They're so uncomfortable because either they know, or they know if they say a word, their families are going to be buried in the desert. So disclosure has to happen. You can only keep a secret at this level for so many decades. It has to come out at some point.
Mm-hmm. And
I think the terrible thing is most people already know or have an idea. It's ridiculous that they're holding it back.
Yeah, I think millions of people either want to believe or are open-minded. I mean, people like Art. So the three of us. Well, we know that this stuff is, at least some of the stuff is real. I mean, we know it in our hearts. We've studied it. Deb experienced it. I saw 3 UFOs. Some of us know it's real. I think millions either want it to be real or absolutely are open-minded to it. And then there's a lot of people, man, who are going to go, oh, that's bullshit. There's no alien. There's no aliens. My mother used to say, Danny, it's enough with the aliens already. It's enough. There's no aliens. It's enough with the aliens. Now I've since turned her and she knows the truth. But it's going to take some real concrete evidence, demonstrations. I hope they land in Dodger Stadium during the game, and they use the dialogue. And they say Dan Harary wrote in his book, and he gave us the dialogue. We're here, and we love you, and we're here to help you.
Yeah, having been in the public eye over this whole thing for probably 40 years now, I can say that from my own personal perspective, attitudes have changed quite a bit. And I do see a shift in the general population regarding the attitude about this whole thing. So I think that we are much closer um, to something changing than we were definitely 40 years ago. So
I agree. Did you watch the Dave Grush hearing?
yes, I did.
All right. So
Eh,
Dave Grush and the two other guys, they're like, we saw craft that are not from this world.
Right.
We know of bodies that are non-human. They never said the word alien. They never said
Hmm.
the words extraterrestrial. They said
Mm-hmm.
non-human pilots. That's what they called them. Non-human pilots and off-world craft.
Yep.
And I live in LA. The next day in the LA Times, it was on page 26. David Grush's testimony was on page 26, buried. The front page was probably something Orange Jesus had for breakfast that morning.
Yeah, people it's like, oh, and the government said aliens exist, and people were like, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever.
How is that not the biggest story in the world the
I
next day?
know.
How is that even? Oh yeah, well yeah, that's his opinion. Yeah, that's his show us the proof. Well, the thing is, he told Congress. Many people said, "Do you have proof?" He said to them, "Bring me into a skiff. A skiff is a
Yes,
private meeting room in the Capitol building. This is called a skiff. Bring me into a skiff, Marco Rubio or Tim Burchett. Bring me in. I'll tell you a lot of cool stuff, but I can't tell you on national TV. You know,
exactly.
they'll kill my family."
Yeah.
And Tim Burchett has told Steve Bassett, my partner, that Tim Burchett tried to get skiffs for Grush, and the military would not let him get his private skiff. Okay, so what's that? What's that? The
Right.
military is still controlling this message still.
Yeah. And I think they like to control. And on the flip side, I was in my shortly after that aired on television, like a week or so. I was in my doctor's office, and I'm in Indiana, in the middle of nowhere, right? Hillbilly heaven. And I'm sitting in the doctor's office waiting to go in, and I hear the gals in the office talking, and one of them is actually showing the other girls the video clip of Grosh talking in the hearings. And she's like, "Are you hearing what he's saying? He's saying the aliens are real. He said he saw bodies." And they're like, "Yeah." And I could hear the other girls going, "Really? Is that what he said?" "Yeah." And she'd play it over again. And they're like, "Oh my God." And she's like, I'm telling you, this stuff is real. And I never would have thought that I would be in my doctor's office in the middle of Indiana and ever in a million years hear something like that. And so that little things like that kind of make me feel like, yeah, we're getting somewhere, you
I
know.
think so. Yeah, yeah. It's like we're like turtles. We're turtles. We're hurtling toward the finish line, but we're turtles. We're inching forward very slowly. But every year since
Yes.
2017, you know, when the New York Times came out, every year since then, it's been inching forward. Do you think the government has kept it a secret so long for fear of a mass panic? JV, that's a great question. My theory is, and we go back to 1930. Oh God, what year was it? 1938 or 39, when Orson Welles did the War of the Worlds
Mhm.
broadcast on Halloween in the late 30s, and it scared the shit out of America. And
Yes.
many people, thousands of people, were scared because they thought Martians had landed in New Jersey. I think it was 1938, I believe it was. And some people apparently had heart attacks. Roswell crash happened in 47. That's only 8 or 9 years after War of the Worlds. President Truman was the president. Roswell crash happened. They announced Roswell crash happened with a press release from Roswell, New Mexico. And that press release ran all over the world. It says, Army recovers disc. Well, when Truman and his people in Washington realized that the Roswell PR department, this would have been my job. If I had been at Roswell, I would have been the publicist there. It would have been me. When Truman and his people realized, they put out a press release that said the Army has an extraterrestrial craft. Their heads must have exploded. The yelling and the screaming must have been unbelievable. And the Roswell PR people got a call from Washington. How dare you announce this, retract it immediately. Do a press conference, say it was a weather balloon, retract it. They retracted it the next day. And it was like, oopsie, sorry, it was a weather balloon. We really blew that one. And from that day till today, it was Truman and his majestic 12 people. It went to Eisenhower. I believe JFK knew. I believe Lyndon Johnson. I believe Nixon knew. Once we get to Ford, I'm not sure. I know Reagan knew. I know Bush Sr. knew. Trump, I've heard that he was told. But not every president is read in fully. And they're going to keep this. I don't think it's for fear of mass panic. I think when Truman did it, it was. But now it's more like trying to get the advanced technology for weapons that are more powerful than Russia, China, or North Korea or Iran have. And also, if the aliens give us their free energy technology, there goes oil, coal, gas, and nuclear energy. It all goes away. Now think about all the oil billionaires and oil oligarchs all over the world. If we don't need oil anymore, if cars didn't need oil anymore because the aliens gave us something free, it changes the global economy overnight. And powerful people in positions of authority, they're not going to let that happen anytime soon.
Hey, I'm all for that. I'm just saying.
Mhm.
Enough of this oil crap. I gotta go get an oil change tomorrow.
Speaking of oil, right? Those sons
right.
Jiffy
So
Lube,
Dan,
how dare you?
right, yeah. So Dan, I wanted to ask you. You have a couple books coming out here pretty soon, right?
Yes, thank you for asking. So just to recap, I have two that are out already, Flirting with Fame and After They Came. Those are on Amazon. And if you like me, please check those out. This May, I have two more books coming out. Just by coincidence, they're both coming out in May. One is called My Paranormal Life. A Hollywood insider reveals tales of the supernatural. I think that's what it's called. What we haven't gotten to today, and maybe if you want, we could do part two another time. After my dad died, his ghost visited me in my bedroom several times. In 2003, my dead grandfather was a poltergeist in my house. When I was 5, I fell off a sign. I think I died. A gargoyle creature saved my life. The story I told you about, Dan, Start Your Own Business, from the chandelier, the home movie download at the deli when I saw a home movie from 47 years earlier. I have had paranormal experiences, dozens of them, my entire life. So last year I had nothing to do. I said I might as well write another book. So that's called My Paranormal Life. That comes out in May. My other book is purely a thriller. It's a fiction thriller. It's called 5, like the number 5. I walk 5 miles every other day, and for the last 4 years. And on one of my walks, I'm like, Dan, you need to write one more book. What's it going to be called, Dan? I don't know. I walk 5 miles every other day. Maybe I'll call it 5. Okay, 5. I'll call it 5. So then I had the title, and then I had to have a book. I had the title, and then I had to have a book to go with the title. I did it in reverse that way. And the basic premise is, I was thinking, one of the walks, I was thinking, what if Bruce Springsteen had been was a mass murderer and like nobody knew, like the biggest pop star in the world, and nobody knew he was a mess. Like, what a great premise. So the premise for 5 is, in 1870s Europe, there's a guy who becomes a mass murderer, and he kills 5 women. His name is Fievel. His nickname is 5. His nickname is 5. That's where 5 is. And he kills 5 women in the 1870s Europe. Okay, fine. Then he dies. And then 100 years later, he's reincarnated in 1970s America. And in his new incarnation, he becomes the biggest pop music star in the world. But he's still a serial killer. And he doesn't know why. He's killing people, but he doesn't know why. He's reincarnated. He's a reincarnated serial killer. And I threw stuff in from my paranormal life and my childhood, and I just cut and paste. That's coming out in May also. It's called 5. So
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Nice.
I don't know where that one came from. Yeah.
You're a busy guy.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So Dan, put out your socials so people can find you.
Sure. The best ways to find me, well, go to HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org, and you can read about that group. I'm there, Deb's there. Greg, if you want to join, let me know. And
Right on.
you can contact me there. My books that exist, again, Flirting with Fame and After They Came, those are both on Amazon. I have an Amazon author page. Probably the best way is danharariauthor.com. danharariauthor.com. That's my writing page. All my books are there, and my future plans and my biography, and me with every famous person you could think of, all the fun photos I have with me with Spielberg and Jerry Seinfeld and Mel Brooks and Steve Allen and Sid Caesar and all those wonderful things. That's all there. So danharariauthor.com is probably the easiest way to go.
Right on. So look, we're coming down to about an hour and 40 minutes.
Wow, that went pretty
All right.
fast.
It did.
It was wonderful.
But it was, and I appreciate you coming on and talking with us. I'm kind of more of the paranormal side of the show, and of course, Deb does the UAP UFOs, but it was very interesting hearing. I'm going to check out your book. Comes highly recommended.
That's very sweet. And have me back on in May, and then we can promote my Paranormal Life book. Yeah,
definitely. I want to hear more about the paranormal stories that you have.
Yeah, that's always been more prominent in my life throughout. The UFO stuff was more extraordinary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the paranormal stuff, it's been like I've heard. The last time it's a sad story, but the last time I saw my dad with my brother, we hugged him goodbye in Florida at a parking lot. We had dinner with him and his wife. They drove off. My brother walked to the rental car. I watched my dad wave bye-bye like a little kid. He had no brain left. And as they pulled away, and I swear to you, I heard a voice out loud, a voice in my right ear. It's always my right ear. It said, "Dan, you'll never see your dad alive again." So I turned around. I thought it was my brother. My brother was in a rental car. There was no one behind me. "You'll never see your dad alive again." And that was just like I just said it just now. I fell to my knees sobbing. I never did see my dad again. He passed away a few weeks later. So I've had voices like that every once in a decade. Just was a statement of fact. They'll say something in my ear. When I was 10, I was watching the Monkees. "Danny, play the drums." "Really? Okay, I guess I'll play the drums." Drums altered the course of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Drums led to rock and roll, led to Boston University, led to Hollywood, led to my entire career. Drums started everything when I was 10. Danny, play the drums. That was a voice I heard. So if there are guides or angelic guides or spirit guides or God or whatever it is, but I believe in that stuff because it's been happening to me my whole life.
Same with me as well. And you, I don't know if you read it in my book, but I've had a lady's voice come and tell me things.
Do you ever figure out who it was?
Mm-mm.
That's the hard part because people ask me who it is. I don't know. Yes.
It's me.
You're the lady's voice, Greg. She said a lady's voice.
I'm the lady's voice.
Like when I was in the middle, when I was getting divorced from my second husband, and I had met my third husband, but I didn't know that I had met my third husband. I didn't know that's who he was. But when I was driving home from trying to get my second husband to sign the divorce papers, driving back to my mom's, and the woman's voice said to me, "Carl, you've got to hurry up, Carl."
I did. I read your book. Yeah, that was in your book. I remember.
Yeah, and it turns out that my late husband, who I knew as K.O., I knew him for 10 years, and I had no idea that the K stood for Carl.
I did read that. I did.
So yeah, I can totally relate to you. I mean, I'm on the UFO side of this whole NPR thing, but in actuality, I have as much bank in the paranormal part as I do the UFO part. It's just been a big blend in my entire life. So I really feel that I want to hear more about it.
Deb, that's something else you and I have in common.
I know we have a lot of things in common.
Listen, since the book came out, I have befriended wonderful people like you and Kathy Martin and Nick Pope. I had dinner with Nick Pope two weeks ago. Nick Pope is one of my best friends, literally.
That's awesome.
My daughter goes, Dad, it's so cool. You and Nick Pope are friends. We email each other almost. Nick Pope, he's one of my best friends. Steve
and I'm
Bassett,
really close with Richard and Tracy, his wife Tracy.
I'm going to be interviewing them in April.
They're great. I love them.
I should mention this. I am the publicist for Contact in the Desert 2024.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys will be there, but if you are, please let me know. We can hang.
Oh, I wish I could, but I can't afford it.
Oh, me too.
It's the place to be. I hear all my friends are going. All the
That's a really,
friends are talking
Steve
about
Bassett invited me last summer, and I shared the room with him, and he turned me on to it. And I met George Norrie and Dolan. I met Dolan and Katie Page. I'm like, wow, this is the best one. It's the best one.
It is. I've never been, and I would love to someday.
Plus, it's in Palm Springs. It's like
gotta hit
100 degrees.
First.
It's 100 degrees. There's girls in bikinis at the pool, and you're listening to Nick Pope. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, it's been so good to talk to you and to hear all your stories, and I really appreciate you coming on and being with us.
I couldn't wait. I was looking forward to this.
I was really looking forward to it too.
And I'm having you on, Deb. I don't remember when. I think May, but I have you. We're gonna reverse this one in a few months.
Yep, I will be there.
That's great.
Bells on.
Thank you very much. Let's stay in touch. And Greg, it's great to meet you. And
nice
let me know
you.
when this was live, so I'll be able to get the link after the fact. Obviously.
We absolutely will. And yep.
Great. All right, you guys have a great evening.
Sure.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you, Dan.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. That was a good show. He is a plethora of information and
what a life.
Stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. He's had a wonderful life.
Yeah, the triangle UFO thing. I mean, I've seen it myself a couple times. Not necessarily that close. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't see anybody waving back out the window at me. But I mean, anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
But no, great show. Remember, guys, go out and check out his book on Amazon and pick it up. And he's got 2 more coming out in May. Deb's going to be on his show. We'll post a link on our Facebook pages if you guys want to run over there and check out Deb.
Check out Deb. I'll comb my hair and everything, I swear.
No, you won't. You're lying. It's a wig, people. She wears a weave. That's all I'm saying.
If I paid for this, I'd be suing somebody.
Refund.
Yep,
Oops, I'm knocking shit off my desk. So, all right, guys, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Our first show back after the holidays. We hope everybody had a great holiday and, Christmas, New Year's. And we did. We got to spend it at home and hang out with everybody. So that was cool. And then I had to go back to work and it sucks. But, it's always hard for me to go back to work after the holidays or after any holiday because I'm like, F these people. I don't want to do this shit no more. They can kiss my ass. And then I'm like, I got to get a paycheck. So hi ho.
You better
it's
be nice.
To work we go. Yeah, I play nice with others.
They'll watch your videos and you'll be in trouble.
That's all right. We're going to make it here one day. We're not going to need that flipping job. We'll just do podcasts and YouTube videos.
Yay. That'll work for me.
Hells yeah. So, all right, guys, remember next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central here. You can look us up on YouTube at Midwest Paratalk Radio. We're on all podcast formats, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podomatic. I said Spotify.
Yeah.
I'm old, man. Come on.
I'm older than you. I'm 10
I ain't
years
as
older
crispy
than you.
I ain't as crispy as I used to be.
Oh, well.
But yeah, Dan James said a good guess. Yeah, he was a good guy. I had a good time talking to him.
Yes,
so,
thank
all right,
you
guys.
again, Dan. Thank you so much for coming.
for sure. So I guess let's more or less we're out of beer out of here. We'll see you guys next Thursday night.
Oh my gosh. Am I going to have to start doing that?
You might. Hold on, I'll pull my head out of my ass again, using it as a stupid hat. Next Thursday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, here on the Midwest Paratalk Radio Network. Check us out, MidwestParatalkRadio.com. You can also check out our shop page. Deb's book is on the shop page. Go over there, pick it up. You can also check her out on Amazon. And that being said, we'll see you guys next Thursday.
Bye.
Boo-bye.